All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal. I am Alec Shane, breaking down not Patriots football because the Patriots season is blissfully over, but Patriots off-season news. It has begun already. We have a new head coach, Rich Hill. Not surprised by the Mike Vrabel hiring at all. Some people love it. Some people were really, really hoping for Ben Johnson. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. But before we get into that, let's talk about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Before we get into this podcast, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in rewarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports apps accessible to all. Choose pick more or less on at least two players, and you get to win up to 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Only a few NFL games left. Playoff time is here, so do not miss out on these last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks. Again, you can go to 1,000 times your money. Plus, Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't have to win to get that bonus. It is guaranteed. Again, $50 instantly when you play just $5. There's also weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, which offers Prize Picks discounts to each player projection 25% to provide even more value to your lineups. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get that $50 discount on $50 added instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Rich, maybe next year we'll be able to bet some Prize Picks money on the Patriots when they make the playoffs with Coach Mike Vrabel, the savior of the franchise. Overall, Rich, how are you feeling about this hire? I know neither of us are surprised. I know you were kind of leaning towards Ben Johnson when we last picked, but I think we both thought that it wasn't going to happen. So now that the dust is settled, it's official. How are you feeling?
I mean, it's fine. I don't know, man. It feels so preordained. And I think my big issue with the Gerard Mayo pick last year was that it also felt preordained. It didn't feel like it was a real coaching search. And I have a lot of conspiracies on this, and I would love to break those down with you. But at the top of it, they didn't do an interview process, and they got Gerard Mayo. Do you feel like there was any semblance of a real interview process this time, or did they just know it was Vrabel out of the gate? And for that reason, 2 years in a row of it feeling like it was a sham interview process makes me feel very uneasy.
Yeah, it's funny. Like the Mayo thing, I was more willing to overlook because, look, he's been with the team since he was drafted. He was part of the coaching staff. He was obviously well respected in the locker room. It was weird to me that I don't know how many people have been promoted to head coach having not called a single play as a coordinator. I'm sure it's happened in the past. I'm not an encyclopedia, but it's a very crazy jump to make to have gone from not having called a single play with your team to be the head coach all of a sudden. But again, Kraft had seen them. Belichick was there. There seemed to be a mutual respect. I can get that move. The Vrabel thing, my only concern, again, I'm not upset about Vrabel at all. I think he's a good head coach. I think he's going to be good in New England. I think one thing he offers that Ben Johnson doesn't is he's been there before. He's been around the block, and he's not a rookie head coach coming into an absolute disaster of a culture and organization. So that's a big win. My only question is, I think the Patriots were infamous for so many years from the Belichick era to not only not listen to the media, but almost aggressively do the opposite of what the media predicted. When it comes to draft picks, free agency signings, trades, off-season moves, whatever, if there was anybody saying anything, this is what the Patriots should do, you're almost guaranteed for them not to do that. I wonder if they've the wind's now blowing the other direction, where every time the media makes a popular consensus, the Crafts are going to listen to it, maybe to save some face, to get some reputation back. That documentary, that they're now kind of trying to appease the masses. And the Vrabel hire was, again, in the interest of the team, but also you can't overlook that this was kind of the more popular pick. And so they kind of just fast tracked it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's one where ultimately at the end of the day, I feel like he'll be a fine head coach, right? You look up and down who are in general the best head coaches in the NFL. The fact that it was, Ben Johnson was another candidate. They weren't going to go for another first-time head coach, zero experience, young guy, hot shot after they did the Mayo experiment. Not saying that Mayo met any of those descriptors, but you can't go for a young first-time head coach again, right? That's just not a thing that they were ever going to do. And so when you see who are the longest tenured head coaches, you got your Tomlin, you got your Harbaugh, Andy Reid, obviously, Sean McDermott. They've been the 4 longest tenured head coaches in the NFL. Added McVay and Shanahan, who, you can't replicate. That's the core. Everything else is kind of a bit of an offshoot where I think there's been varying success of people off of different coaching trees. Obviously, I think that you have LaFleur and O'Connell who have been good coming out of the McVay tree. You have McDaniels had like a varying level of success out of the Shanahan side of it. But you have Campbell, who's doing a great job as well. DeMeco Ryans is overachieving. There's a lot of different places where above average head coaching can take place. In my head, there's only a couple head coaches where to the level that Belichick was on defense, that you have that much of a game changer in the coaching role. I think Andy Reid, I think Shanahan, and I think McVay are the 3 coaches that I would say, their coaching is a differentiation point that makes them competitive with whoever they have. Everyone else is a CEO. Can you manage the team and the personnel and not cause your team to have mistakes, to make errors, to not lose games? That is your responsibility. I don't think that Vrabel, I think he's good at what he does. I don't think he's necessarily, obviously, no one is, Belichick on defense. I think that he's good enough to make them play the fundamentals. I think that they're good enough to get them in the right track. And then if May is who we think he could possibly be as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, that could be a very good pairing to make them competitive. Obviously, the standard is 6 Super Bowls. That's not going to happen. But what could happen is a very competitive team on a regular basis, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, all I really want to see out of 2025, again, I have no Super Bowl aspirations for 2025, but I think there's a chance, given their soft schedule, given their cap space and the offseason they're about to have, I think a winning record isn't out of the question at this early stage in the offseason. Maybe a sneak in as a wild card. That's still the Bills division. It will be for the foreseeable future. But I think they are potentially a wild card team, depending on what unfolds. And I think that they have the talent. And if they hadn't had such a drop-off on defense between 2023 and last season with pretty much the same roster, I would maybe be singing a different tune this evening. But the fact that they are basically the same team, and it's starting to come out. I don't know if you're paying attention now that the season's over, but Patriots players are whispering about there was just no sense of unity in the locker room. Mayo didn't really know what he was doing. The communication was off. Again, he was just I don't blame the guy. He was just in over his head. He just wasn't able to. And one thing I think Mike Vrabel will be able to do pretty quickly is establish a culture. As a player, he was a well-respected guy in the locker room. There's all these really funny stories about what a bastard he was and how he liked to he was tough as nails and didn't put up with any crap in a good way. It's not like he was a bad teammate, but he was a very straight, narrow guy that really got things done, and he has to be able to apply that. And look, the reality is he had success with the Titans. Was it 2019? They went to the AFC Championship game. Granted, they had Derrick Henry. He's kind of a cheat code. But he was undefeated against Bill Belichick. I don't think Vrabel ever lost to Belichick as coach of the Titans. They made the playoffs 3 straight years in a row. They won the AFC South twice in a row in 2020 and 2021. Things started to go south for them in 2022 and 2023. It's why he got fired. But he's got the track record. And again, I think Ben Johnson maybe has a potentially higher ceiling than Mike Vrabel does. I don't know if Mike Vrabel is going to be a 20-year, tenured coach the way nobody in the NFL is. But I think where this team's at in terms of what a mess they are from top to bottom, I think they need somebody to come in here that's established, that's been around the block a couple of times, that can deal with the Boston media, and Vrabel is the guy for that. So I know Ben Johnson is a cooler pick. He's a sexier pick, but I think Vrabel was the right one. I agree with you, though, that the interview process was kind of weird. And I just wonder 2 things. I wonder if, A, it might have been a scenario where Vrabel was being courted by another team and there was a risk of losing him if they didn't pull the trigger quickly. Very, very possible. And 2, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about this. If you are a company and you are really dedicated on hiring this particular employee at another company and that's your person, but you still have to just do the round of interviews to like put the FaceTime in. I don't think that's fair to anybody. I think you should be allowed to hire whoever the hell you want. You shouldn't have to give a courtesy interview to somebody because that's a waste of everybody's time. So maybe it's a combination of both those things. They knew they wanted Vrabel from the start. They didn't want the Jets get him, for example. They didn't want another team to get him. The Raiders maybe Tom Brady was going to make a push for him. There's rumors about that. They wouldn't let him leave Boston, and they had to do their perfunctory, stupid couple of interviews just to say they did it, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I also don't blame Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator from the Lions, who said, I'm good. No, thanks. I don't need to interview there. Because, for the Rooney Rule, they got Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton. It's like, let's be serious. 0% chance that any of them were going to do anything. Yep. And so, truly, it was a Ben Johnson's versus Vrabel thing. And I don't think Ben Johnson was seriously being considered for this role. My conspiracy on this one is that Vrabel, he got fired from the Titans because he was pretty explicit at the Patriots, his induction to the Patriots Hall of Fame, that he wanted to come to the Patriots. He was pretty upfront about that. And this is my completely unfounded conspiracy, is that the Patriots wanted him this whole time. And they had a few things that they couldn't play with because, one, if they hired Vrabel and they had tampered with him as head coach of the Titans, how many top picks would they lose? How many of them, especially them being top 5 picks, right? They could not afford to lose those. That would be franchise altering. And so they couldn't hire him immediately. This is my, again, completely unfounded. But it seems like the Patriots didn't do anything with Mayo as head coach. Right. They didn't sign any big free agents. One of the things that Vrabel mentioned was, they talked with Elliott Wolf, sounded like they couldn't do a lot of things from a, signing perspective. And I'm like, were his hands tied because they've been biding their time? Did they know it was going to be Vrabel this whole time? And they had, one, couldn't tamper with Vrabel, so they couldn't sign him. 2, Mayo had it in his contract that he needed to get the role. And so just throwing away the 2024 year allowed both of those things to fly by. They knew it was going to be Vrabel this whole time. I don't know, man. Again, completely unfounded. But if that came out as the truth, I'd buy it completely.
Tell you, Rich, I love a good conspiracy theory, and that's not super far-fetched. It isn't. Again, who knows what goes on behind closed doors in the NFL? You never know. Let me ask you this, though, Rich. If you were Robert Kraft, you own the Patriots, who would you have hired? Would you have taken a flyer on Ben Johnson, or would you still have gone Vrabel if it's your job to hire somebody?
Yeah, I would have done a real interview process. I think that's the thing, is I would get in the best possible candidates, because you could aim for the Ben Johnson, hope he becomes the Shanahan, LaFleur, McVay, their ability on offense. And if you match them with a good quarterback, will let you to contend for their entire career. Or you could try and go the, Tomlin, Harbaugh, et cetera, Belichick even route, where you train the entire team on just being so good at every single fundamental that you don't lose games, in the sense that you might be outplayed, but you don't do something that costs you the game. And that's where I think Vrabel will be, is that he's going to train them to not cost games. I think my hesitation with him, and why I would have liked there to be a completely open interview process, is that I don't think he was over the top good with the Titans, right? Obviously he got coach of the year. They made it to the AFC Championship, so he's not bad. He's a good enough head coach. His team ranked in the top 10 in point differential once in his entire year as the Titans head coach, and they ranked 8th. Even in their best year, when he won the awards, AP Coach of the Year in 2021, they ranked 11th in point differential. He was handicapped a little bit by having Tannehill as his quarterback, but Tannehill wasn't a bad quarterback. He was just firmly a 10 to 15th ranked quarterback. His defenses were mediocre unless they're able to force turnovers. And so I have just hesitations around, did he do well enough because the AFC South was the worst division in football and has been for the past 25 years? Is that why his team was able to outperform? Is because they're beating up on the Jaguars and the then bad Colts twice a year. And the Texans weren't good either. And so, that's what the Patriots did. So I'm not saying that that's not a bad way to do it, But I don't know if I ever saw anything that was like, oh, he's an exceptional head coach that will transform the team. But my other side of it, and this isn't answering your question either, though, is that Belichick would always say players win games, coaches lose games. And if Vrabel can come in, help them avoid losing games, all we talked about last year is that Mayo cost them games, that they were playing one possession difference games, and they lost all of them. If Vrabel comes in, turns them into a coin flip, you got a 500 team, and that's something to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, armchair quarterbacking. It's kind of how we do it. I was always kind of a Vrabel guy. Again, I think if this is a situation where maybe it wouldn't have been a firing, so it's kind of a moot point, but if the Patriots were a little bit less of a mess as an organization, and there was still some locker room culture in there, and there was some semblance of, whatever you want to think about it, there was some semblance of the Patriot way was still present in those locker room. Maybe a new head coach could come in and he could have those growing pains. He could learn on the fly a bit, because Ben Johnson, I wish him all the best wherever he goes. It might be the Raiders. I can see Tom Brady making the big push for him, but he's going to have some learning curve because it's inevitable. And that's just the way it is. And plus, like, Vrabel was an all-time great Patriot, so I think that definitely factored in the fact that he played well for
Absolutely.
the team. Do you think, Rich, that he has a longer leash than Gerard Mayo, or if the Patriots go 4-13 again, he does? Yeah,
he does. There's no world where Belichick fires two head coaches after 1 year twice in a row. That's just not going to happen. There would likely be Elliot Wolf would lose his job. So Elliot Wolf is going to say yes to whatever Vrabel asks for this upcoming year. But I would be shocked. They have another top pick right now. They have a lot of money to spend. I think that they want to have a little bit more consistency for Drake May. I'm very much wanting to see who Vrabel brings in as an offensive coordinator, because I don't think Van Pelt was good at developing May, putting them in a position to succeed. Very curious to see which coaching tree Vrabel pulls from on that one. And he has a good track record of success there in my mind. He had Matt LaFleur come over. And so I'm very interested to see what Vrabel's able to do on that front.
It's funny. Is Alec Van Pelt, is he officially out, or is he still technically the offensive coordinator? Do you know where we're at right now with that?
The Ben Volin reporting is that both Mayo and Van Pelt were fired by 5 p.m. the day of the game.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But Covington's still there as of right now, right? As a defensive coordinator.
I think technically, yeah.
Right. So there's still some pieces to move around. There's still some empty seats that need to be filled. Speaking of filling empty seats, why not go to Game Time to fill some empty seats at the coming playoffs?
Hey.
Game Time is a great place to buy tickets. It is my favorite app because of that super deal. You get the best value. It's my favorite app because the seat views before you buy. And of course, the all-in pricing allows you to see the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. There are only a couple football games left in the season. If you don't go to the playoffs, that's fine. The NBA is in full swing. The NHL is in full swing. Plus, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, Game Time has got it. And your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take your guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today for your last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. So if you had to guess, Rich Hill, as of right now, who would you bring in if you're Mike Vrabel as an offensive coordinator and probably defensive coordinator as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. There's always that trade-off for comfortability. That's something that I wouldn't blame them for. Someone that you've worked with before, someone that had upside. We were talking before the podcast, one of the names floated around as offensive coordinator was Tommy Rees, who was the tight end and passing game coordinator for the Browns when Vrabel was the consultant there this past year. And in my head, I'm just like, please don't bring anyone in from the Browns team. And fortunately, Rees was promoted to offensive coordinator of the Browns. So that's not going to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some familiar faces from his time with the Titans. I think a lot of the coaches that he had with them have found their way to teams like the Giants. But in particular, I would love to see them bring in like a Keenan McCardell type, like someone who has coached under the McVay tree in general. What I've loved to is a little bit of the development that we saw out of Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings with Sam Darnold. And, right now there's a view that Flores, former Patriots defensive coordinator Brian Flores, might go somewhere with Josh McCown, who's their quarterbacks coach. McCardell has been their wide receivers coach for a while, knows the system super well, has been considered for the Patriots offensive coordinator in the past. I would love to see someone come in with a semblance of innovation in thought leadership at the offensive coordinator role, someone who's, obviously Josh McDaniels, fine floor to have. If he's the guy, so be it. But if someone can come in who is a little bit more innovative, who is a little bit more modern, I would be very okay with that choice.
Yeah, I mean, McDaniels is kind of the name that's floating around a lot. Again, I'd be fine with that. He's a great offensive coordinator. Again, I think we talked about it in our last podcast too. Is like, would McDaniels want to come back for like a 7th stint as the offensive coordinator of the Patriots?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I think I can't see him getting any more head coaching opportunities at this point.
Not at all.
He's named that too many times. So I think the offensive coordinator, which he's very good at, is his ceiling. And I think he'd be a very creative offensive coordinator for a quarterback like Drake May, who has mobility and who's able to make plays. But I don't know. I'd like to make sure that whoever they bring in is kind of not as old school. I think one of the complaints people are having right now about the early interviews Vrabel's doing is he's talking about, how teams that run the ball 40 times a game don't lose. And they're like, well, he's going to run the ball all the time. It's like, well, if you're running the ball 40 times a game, you're probably up by 3 touchdowns at halftime and you're just milking the clock out. And so they're manipulating stats. I think they're concerned with Vrabel offensively is he's a defensive guy. He's a linebacker, but he learned how to coach offense more, but he's going to be a very boring kind of run it on first down, second down, throw it on third down, and punt kind of coach. And honestly, I would be totally fine running on first down and second down and throwing on third down if that third down became a first down. I don't care how you get down the field. I don't need Drake May to air it out 25, 30, 45 times a game. I just need the Patriots to win football games again and have some semblance of an offense and fix the offensive line. That's all I really care about. And I still think he can do that. And again, I'm not gonna get too nuts about this pick because he's got a lot of work to do. I'll be very curious to see what his first move is, and I'm hoping. If you had to guess now, Rachel, we can talk more about it as the offseason gets more into full swing. But do you think Mike Vrabel's first move as head coach will be kind of make some big splashy free agent signing like a T. Higgins, or think he'll go kind of more Belichick style and fill out the roster with solid player guys that contribute right away?
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a lot of the unflashy but really good signings. Like, not saying the diamond in the rough that Vrabel himself was when the Patriots signed him, but if the first 3 signings are all offensive linemen, I would be very happy with that, right? Like, you building the offense and improving them is brick by brick. You have no offense with a bad offensive line. And so that is the first thing that needs to be fixed. Drake May needs to have protection in front of him. I think from a personnel perspective, that's where they're going to go. I also just think it's going to be complete trench remake because they were just terrible against the run this past year. And I think that's where there's going to be a lot of shakeups. And truly, to Vrabel's point, everyone's up for their jobs again. I don't think it matters who got an extension necessarily last year. So if he comes in and he thinks that Godshaw isn't the right fit, then I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of movement there, even with names that we thought might be safe.
Yeah, it's again. I don't want to call it a complete reset because I think the rebuild is underway and positive steps were made last season. But I guess there was one positive step made last season, right? And they found a quarterback, and everything else kind of up in the air. That's a big positive first step. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not like they made some real progress elsewhere. The quarterback's the guy, and what Vrabel does with it, we will soon see. But again, I think I'm optimistic. I don't think Mike Vrabel represents some kind of savior. I wouldn't have thought Ben Johnson was some kind of savior. This is not a team where a coach is going to come in and magically fix it. I just need someone to kind of just plug the holes in the ship, stop it from sinking, and maybe it can float on its own. And I do think there's some good pieces in place, and Vrabel will do some good things with this team. And he's a very likable guy, and I'm looking forward to it. And he has my support, and that's kind of all I have to say about it. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about with this one.
No, nothing on the Vrabel front. Definitely will be breaking down more once his staff fills out, once the season ends. Alec, any surprises from the divisional round that you think's worth talking about here? I think it was the second time in NFL history that the same four teams made it to the Final Four in a given conference, and talking about the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, and Texans. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on where the league currently stands with the final 8 teams?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of always the way it is in the AFC. I feel like the AFC is kind of always sends the same teams to the playoffs, and those teams kind of slowly filter in and out over the years. I really, really wish it was it was Ravens Chiefs this weekend and Bills Texans. That'd be a much better game, because that means that I think that the Chiefs are going to walk all over the Texans. Even though the Chiefs aren't good, the Texans are not going to Arrowhead and winning that game. And then the Bills and the Chiefs are going to the Bills and the Ravens are going to beat the ever living crap out of each other for 4 quarters, and they're going to come limping into Arrowhead. So I think we're probably looking at a Chiefs like Lions Super Bowl now, and I'll be rooting very, very hard for the Lions when it happens. I just wish that the Ravens were playing the Chiefs and not the Bills. But that's why you play the games in the regular season, to get that seeding.
Yep. Yeah. I do think that one of the most imbalanced changes that the league has made is only having one bye week. So that way the number one team is way more likely to make it to the Super Bowl in a given year. I don't appreciate that change, but it's one that we'll see how it truly plays out. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Texans went in there and won. I think you need to have a little bit of recklessness to pull it off. And I think that why not go for it with CJ Stroud? I feel like it's the Ravens' year for some reason. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. I think the NFC, I like the Lions a lot. If the Commanders go into Detroit and win, I don't think I'll be fully surprised. I think that Jaden is really the truth for the Commanders out there. And I just wouldn't be shocked. There's got to be a couple upsets that take place, and I don't think we've really seen one yet.
No, yeah, we haven't. But I feel like, just like if the Chiefs are not going to three-peat, I think it's going to be the Lions that take them out. I just don't really see the Eagles or the Commanders taking them out at all. I just really, really don't. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but I don't know. I just also, to your point about the playoff structure, like the 2-7 game is such a bad game. It's just not a good football game. I know you've got like the March Madness style 16-1 upset, but like I don't. Maybe I'm just recency bias here, but the 2-7 games this past week were pretty brutal. I think last year they were pretty brutal as well. Meanwhile, the only thing I'm hoping is there have been times when the Patriots had that first round bye, and they came out against whoever was playing them in the divisional round, and they were very, very sloppy, a little rusty. And the Chiefs basically rested all their starters for the Broncos game too. So maybe they're going to basically have had 3 weeks off coming into this game. So there's definitely some rust availability there. But I'm not even caring about the Chiefs in terms of like the three-peat threatens Tom Brady's GOAT status. I don't care about that at all. Like Tom Brady's GOAT status is untouchable, and anybody who argues otherwise is just stupid at this point. But it's just, you want some variety in the Super Bowl, and the fact that we had the chance to have like a Bills Lions Super Bowl is like a very distinct possibility. And one of those teams has to win by definition. I'm really, really, really hard for that.
Yeah, I think this year more so than any other year too, though. It's just that the Chiefs are boring. Yeah, right. Like that's the biggest cardinal sin in football. It's like, is your team boring? And that's where the Chiefs are. Like they might luck their way into pulling it off, but they are without a doubt the at best third most exciting team in the AFC. Probably are they a top 5 most exciting team left in the playoff? I don't think so. I don't think that they are. And so that's where I don't want them to keep going. Just, they're not fun to watch right now. You have a lot of other better offenses, and that's what draws eyeballs, and that they are not that fun to watch at this point in time. I think what the league should also do is just lean into it and do 8 teams, even though that's half of the conference. That gives you the seeding. You get the team who's removes the bye week, which also I don't think the league would care about that. But then you still get the easier-ish matchup, but you remove just the preposterous advantage that the first round bye gives that number 1 seed and balances out a little bit more to make it more engaging.
Yeah, and that's more games, more money in the NFL's pocket, and the number 1 seed still gets home field advantage, which is a big advantage that you can earn from the 1 seed. I'd be all for that. But again, I think the 1-8, and I guess there's always upsets. It's the way it is, but if the 2-7 game is any indicative of what the 1-8 game is going to be, it'll be a lot of bad football. And it's very it's bordering on turning into the NBA, where like everyone makes the playoffs. We're kind of just waiting for the regular season. So, but again, more football is always a good thing. But this is all irrelevant, Rich Hill, because the Patriots aren't in it. One thing I like about with the Patriots being bad is the pressure that used to be on me watching Patriots football in January was pretty embarrassing. How nervous I would get for games, the stakes, the kind of they because we were kind of waiting around for all season. They went 12-4, 13-3, got a first round bye, and the season always started in January when it was Tom Brady, and you get so nervous. Now I'm just kind of relaxed watching the games. Don't really care who wins. No real rooting interest. And after 20 years of Super Bowl or bust, it's a nice little break. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, totally. And at least this year, again, I know I said I wasn't like pumped with the Vrabel choice. He's still a fine choice.
Yep.
And I think there's going to be more hope going to this year. I hope my conspiracy bears out a little bit and the Patriots spend all their money finally on some big name tickets and they were just waiting. But I think that this year will be better than the past 2 years have been. And if they come back at the end of the 2025 season and we are again talking about a top 5 overall pick, we got greater problems to talk about here. And then it becomes absolutely clear that the only problem is Kraft.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, may our podcast never go there, Rich Hill.
Yes. Well, until next time, Alec, we'll probably be breaking down Patriots with Vrabel's more fleshed out staff. I imagine that they'll wait for the season to end, so they'll have access to more coaches on other teams before it gets fully populated. But until that time comes, Alec, you enjoy the rest of the postseason and you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See you.